My name's Eric Dull. Wanted to introduce myself. I've been a pastor now at United Lutheran for 3 years. I've been a pastor overall for 27 years. And just wanted to share a little bit about United and then our relationship with Habitat, as we're the ones that own the property that's on 22nd and Jefferson. Jennifer Haliski's also with us. She's our council president, and her name is marked as United Lutheran Church. So just a little bit of us about us. Our core value is to welcome people without judgment, and our vision is to show up alongside vulnerable and respond to our neighbors' needs. And so one of the things we've had on the corner of 22nd and Jefferson is what we've called our intern house, or a parish house. And it's a small little yellow house that has often housed our intern. And we've been thinking that house is probably going to need to be torn down, we thought eventually, or we are going to need to put a lot of work into it. And we had talked in past years to St. Vincent de Paul and to other agencies to think about what we might do, everywhere from thinking about small houses to Calistoga houses to various options. And just so happens that John, also in full disclosure, happens to be a member of United Lutheran Church. And little over a year ago, or about a year ago, he took over as the CEO of our local Habitat area of Eugene and Springfield. And in conversations with him, he said, there might be something we could do together. Thinking about our neighborhood and wanting to be good neighbors to our neighborhood, we're trying to figure out something that might be a win-win. Obviously, Little Homes brings its own set of issues. Working with the homeless community brings different issues to the neighborhood, all important issues to be thinking about. But in talking with John, he talked about the difference between affordable housing and affordable home ownership, and thinking about the idea of affordable home ownership that gets people into the neighborhood and actually allows them to start building some equity. Seems like a good way to fit in to the community. So the other thing I wanted to say just about United is we can be also a community space. We're not heavy-handed in the way we evangelize, though people are always welcome to our church and to our church services, which are at 9:30 on Sunday mornings. But we also have a space that's available if you ever need a community room to meet at some point. We're willing to rent that out at a very nominal fee. We have the community involvement that we do have is we do have AA groups that meet there. We have a lot of music recitals that do happen in our space, and we're interested in continuing to be good neighbors and reach out and find ways that we can seek to do justice in our area. So with all of that in mind, we've started a relationship with Habitat, and the congregation is in agreement to work with Habitat. The idea is building a 6-unit townhome, and one of those would be gifted back to United to use either for our intern program when we do have an intern, or to use as low-income housing moving forward. But with that in mind, we would continue to be a neighbor and active in participation with what's happening with one of those 6 units, and therefore very active with what's happening with the other 5 units too, and just knowing who's going to be there. So all of that said, I'll hand it over to John, who can get a lot of details about what Habitat's about and what they're thinking here. So, John.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to talk a bit about Habitat and be able to share. I hope you can hear me okay. So Habitat, I've been there since September of 2021. I started as their executive director at that point. So at the tail end of COVID and the issues that everybody was going through. Habitat has historically built about 1 or 2 houses a year annually, and we're trying to increase that build rate. Housing and housing need in our community, and when I say our community, I'm talking about Central Lane County, is very, very high. So it's not just in Eugene, it's also Springfield and Cottage Grove. We are currently working on a complex in Cottage Grove, a development there called Fisher Village. We have 8 homes nearing at different stages of completion right now. Probably within the next 8 to 9 months, those homes will have their occupancy permit, have families available for them. Then we have 4 additional homes to complete there for a total of 12 homes in that community. We have additional property out in Cottage Grove that we're also looking at developing. One of the things we've been fortunate to do is leverage some funding at the state level and the federal level for housing for our community. And as was mentioned, this is, people use the terms affordable housing and affordable home ownership. And sometimes people get, they're a little put off by affordable housing because they think of rentals, or they think of apartments or apartment complexes and increased density. This is not that. This is actually homes. Instead of building single family homes on single lots, which have been historically, that's kind of the model. That's unaffordable in the long run for the affiliates, Habitat affiliates, to be able to do that. The subsidy costs are out of line to the benefit that we can do in terms of the community. A subsidy cost on building a home, a single family home on a single lot, typically runs in excess of $250,000 to $300,000 in this community. That's the subsidized cost that has to go into building the home. And so we try to steer clear of that. As we, that's a little bit about that. There's a whole lot more that goes on in terms of the housing, how we sell the homes. This is all based on, it's an income-based proposition. I've been trying to explain it. One way to think of it is to think of this as, people look at the student loan program nowadays and they think, oh yeah, the income-based repayment program. Well, sort of like that. We base the person's ability to pay a mortgage on what their income is when they qualify for the mortgage. So that's at the point they're moving in. The number happens to be 30% of the gross household income. So if you were to think in terms of that, like I tell people, just using round numbers, if a person was earning $36,000 a year, their monthly mortgage payment would not be more than $900, and that'd be for the principal, interest, tax, insurance, HOA fees. Most of these homes that we're building, especially in these types of multifamily dwellings, are going to be HOA because they're going to have shared siding, shared roofing. They're not going to be able to, this townhome will be one uniform color. It won't be rainbow of colors unless, it comes to that. I suppose it could be, but that's not how we would paint it initially. Hopefully down the road into the future, it won't do that either. We had designs. We showed them at the meeting. We have more designs, happy to share. They're on our website. As we have more information available, especially around the timeline, and that information, we'll share that with the friendly area neighbor, the fan group, so they can share it out via email and in their newsletter. Certainly anyone is welcome to log on to our website and join our newsletter and receive that information too. In terms of that, we'll do the updates. The income levels are all, we're in the 40 to 80% median income, family income for qualification. We have that, it's a chart, it's made by HUD, set up by HUD, so we follow that, federal guidelines. And I'd like to leave time for people who may have questions. I know there was no questions, I understand, at the beginning of the meeting. And even, I think the overriding concern that we heard at the meeting that we held at United Lutheran, there was a lot of concern around parking. And I would say, they're going to have off-street parking available for the individual homes. Is it going to be 2 cars per household? No, it's going to be probably one car per household. Most of the households that we tend to deal with tend to be single parent households. We do have some that are multi-parent. Over time, that changes. These are going to be set up as affordable. So the goal here is to keep them affordable over time. So the model is called permanent affordability. And the goal again is to try and the first family that lives in it in terms of an affordable position is not the last family. That the next family who buys into it would also be a low income based family, an opportunity for them to come in. Frequently when people ask me, when we talk low income, it's like 40 to 80%. You're not talking individuals who are earning, a family of four can earn as much as $65,000 a year and qualify for affordable home ownership. Larger families can earn more. The goal here is to, by the way, I set a timer for myself. The goal here is to build homes that are going to be 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Hopefully, each of the houses that we build will have accessibility built into the first floor, so a bedroom, bathroom on the first floor, so that it's accessible. Part of my overriding concern in home design and home ownership is to provide multi-generational and certainly disability access on the ground floor. Happy to take questions. My door at the office is always open. My email is john.barnum@habitatlane.org, and encourage anybody to reach out with questions and talk. My guess is that we wouldn't break ground on this project until late into 2024. You might see, surveying going on and measuring, that kind of stuff, engineering, review of the land. That's the kind of project level. The finish time I'm hoping would be sometime in, I believe I had said before, but as late as July 2026 would be a finish date goal for that. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. I did have some pictures, but I thought the meeting for us was at 7:30 and I was a little hurried there. So my apologies. But again, happy to send more information and have any conversation anybody wants to have on this. I don't see any other comments popping up.
John, are the pictures available to see on the web somewhere?
I'll have to double check. I know we've had some there, and
Yeah.
I'll double check on that. And then we'll probably set up a web page itself, and you'd be able to access that directly and just look at the design work. And that's going to change. I mean, these are concept designs to get the ball rolling initially. So some of the final designs will be slightly different, probably not much, but 2-story. It's I think the overall height's around 19 feet. It's not excessive.
Yeah.
So
It looked real attractive, the last concept I saw, which might have been the first.
no, actually that we did several different
Oh, okay.
schematics on that to start with. I'm grateful that we made some changes.
All right.
So when they did it with this solid roof line, it looked very institutional.
Yeah.
And so having it step down was a nice feature. Yeah, Pam.
I'm just wondering that I think that lot doesn't have any trees on it right now, does it?
No, it does not. It
will.
will.
I was gonna say, are you gonna put a couple in there?
Oh yeah, yeah. There'll be trees on the lot. The new design will also include what you see around town now, a lot of the bioswales for the water collection and runoff and filtering. That'll be on both ends of the building. There'll be they're sometimes referred to as the cement vault water swale or bioswale.
And did you mention about what the square footage is on, or is every the same, or do you have some that are?
No, I'm right now we're planning that they would all be identical units and just kind of either they'd be what we sometimes refer to as mirror and back to back. So the initial design has an upstairs balcony on every other side, every other home on the front, and then in the back, it's every other home in the back. And then so there'd be 3-bedroom, 2-bath. My guess is they're probably going to be in the 1,300 square foot range.
Thanks.
We are looking at some green design elements. One of the common, oh, I see a hand up, Todd.
Oh, thanks. Continue with your thought, please, and I'll ask my question.
Okay. So frequently people wonder, they go, oh yeah, you have the restore. So you're using the stuff that comes into the restore. we don't use the stuff that comes into the restore. We sell the stuff that comes into the restore to help support building homes. All the homes are built with new materials, all new electrical, all new plumbing, all new appliances. They'll be all electric appliances. There's no gas intended on this construction site. So it's all new materials. They're all built to exceed code. We go for energy savings, and part of that is that these are not homes being designed by an individual for an individual who might say, well, what's my cost benefit ratio over time? We're building these homes for individuals, and our goal is to help them save money. So we don't want it to be an expensive proposition for them. We want it to be a place where they can save money off of their utility costs right from the get-go. So, Todd.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Particularly the last comment. As a student, a long student, and a practitioner of the environment and sustainability, and recognizing that decades ago, affordable housing meant done super cheap, and then it cost a lot to live in the place if you actually wanted to be warm or cool. Or I had two questions, and forgive me, I was distracted by thoughts, so I might have missed this if you already addressed it. So, question number one is, Governor Kotek has a big program, housing and homelessness is part of her platform, and I think getting 36,000 new units out, up above and beyond what we've been doing, is the goal. I've heard that a lot in relation to just housing development community. Has there been incentives or assistance funneled towards habitat and actual affordable housing where we really need it? That's question one, and does that help? And then the second was just based on your affordability index. You mentioned the $36,000 per year income and the $900 monthly rate. I was reading recently, I think in Lane County, affordable housing, or within the city, affordable housing was described as anything that met that metric at the median income, which I believe is a little bit more than 36,000. So if you know that number off the top of your head, I just wanted to know that. Thanks.
Yeah. So you have the median income depends on the family size, and so what they typically address that as, and this is usually addressed by the Housing Urban Development, and they have the numbers online, and it's based on the community. So across the country, it's different in every community. So in our community, if you're looking at a family of four and a median income, it's going to be over 80,000. And so then we are saying we take an 80. We've tried to find families in the 40 to 80% range. We don't try to put a family below 40% because they struggle to meet the mortgage payment. No matter what the mortgage payment is, they struggle to meet it. And we don't fund above 80%. Now that's just a policy. It's not necessarily one I agree with, because I'm also working on a thing called workforce housing, and how can we help with workforce housing? And workforce housing is typically up to 120% of the median income, because costs being what they are, that's where it's going to be. When you get down into it at places like Orange County or down into California, those numbers are off the charts. I mean, you can't afford, even if you're at 250% of the median income. So it varies by community. We have the numbers. We work with those numbers. Regarding the funds that are available, we've secured funding to help us get this program, this particular house, off the ground. It's called LIFT, and that's Local Innovation Fast Track. And when they set that funding up initially, they did that for rental housing, but not necessarily for individual home ownership opportunities. They've added that in the last few years. So we've secured a little over $1 million for this project. $1,080,000 has been secured as a loan, and that loan has 0 interest and 0 payments. So basically, sounds like a grant. Why do they call it a loan? Because they want to ensure that you're inserting things like permanent affordability, and that you're meeting the 40 to 80% area median income requirements. If you don't put those stipulations in, then they call the loan. And so I can understand why they're doing that. It's a method to ensure that people are actually building for what they say they're going to build for, because there are some for-profit contractors who take advantage of this money too to build, because it allows them to build housing for a period of time, but not have to use their own money to do it. And they're doing a lot of apartment building that way. So it's an interesting mix of numbers to work with. And we've also secured $1,080,000 for our Cottage Grove project, and we secured probably around $500,000 for the Springfield project. So we're leveraging as many of these funds as they come available as we possibly can. There are other funds that we're trying to leverage also that are coming out, and there's some that are coming out. It's the what is it? The AHTF fund, I think, that the city of Eugene puts out, which is part of another fund that we're going to try and get some of that money. And our goal there, especially on that particular fund with the city, the way I wrote it last year, which was premature because we weren't quite far enough along, but we're going to reapply this year. And that was to specifically target those funds towards the green initiative of the building project. And so again, Todd, what you're asking about, it's very important to me to recognize that energy is a cost, and it needs to be as low as possible for these families, because it just helps them meet their bills and their payments over time. I hope that answers your questions on that. Anybody else? I'm looking here. Yeah, Lena.
I think this is a wonderful project. Thank you for doing this. It sounds great. A couple of questions on the energy part of it. The way I'm visualizing it, it doesn't look like it'd be good siting for solar necessarily. But what about, and I'm assuming there's no garage, there'll be off-street parking. And so is there any potential for future or built-in like EV charging? And also with kids, I'm assuming if a 3-bedroom, looking at family housing, intergenerational family housing, is there going to be like a safe storage for bicycles or things like that? Or, I mean, I know it's not a single lot, and there's parks nearby, which is great, but
Those are great questions, Lena.
bikes stolen and just
Yeah. We live in Eugene. Who hasn't had one stolen? I've had two.
the safe bike storage is.
So each of the units is designed with a closet space out in front. It's a storage unit. That's really being designed initially for where they would put the trash cans and recycle. But there should be room inside there for at least a bicycle, probably a bicycle to hang inside there also. In terms of parking, each unit does have one off-street parking, so it has a paved driveway. That's the goal right now, is what we're looking at and doing that. The EV charging, that's very interesting, because that is something I've considered, but I'm not sure. I think what I would probably do is design where the electrical takeoffs are going to be. I would ask them to design something for that potentiality, but not to put it in immediately. And the reason I say that is that technology is rapidly changing. And in terms of the people that we have that typically qualify for these homes, they don't currently have electrical vehicles. So I would say they would probably, in a few years, that will start coming to them, but that particular charger might be a different charger. I did actually receive a donation of 5 chargers, and we still have a couple of them left in our store. But even receiving those, we received those a year ago, but we received them because the technology had already changed, and it has changed since then. And so it's a challenge in terms of technology and where you would be on that. And there are some funds available through eWeb, some grants. And so I've been looking at those for future, but I would probably say we'd put a trunk someplace on there that said, this is where we could pull electrical from in a few years when that becomes something a little more viable. Again, I hope that makes sense. Anybody else? I really appreciate this time, and the questions are great.
We're currently out of time, unless someone has a very quick question.
Like
I just want to jump in a transition if I can. I'm Rob Zako with Better Eugene-Springfield Transportation. Thank you, John, for that presentation. I like how there are connections between housing and transportation. I would just put in a plug for electric bicycles. For low-income people, the cost of any sort of car is actually excessive, but you can get a rebate of $300 from eWeb. And I'm seeing more and more that people are using electric bicycles as their primary mode of transportation to get all over the place. And you don't need any special charging equipment for that. You can just plug it into a regular outlet. So just FYI.
So Rob, let me ask a different question for that then. Should we be installing, making sure to install an electrical outlet accessible outside?
I am not an expert. There's some bikes that have removable batteries that you can bring inside,
Okay.
and there's some that don't, that I think you'd have to have them charged wherever you lock the bicycle up. So
Fair
let's
question.
talk offline if you'd like, and there are people.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I
I
got
really
a quick
appreciate this.
question.
Yes.
What is your take on masturbation in public bathrooms?
Somebody
Yep,
jumped in
that's
there.
Completely out of that. That has nothing to do with what we're discussing here, as far as
Oh,
I'm
okay.
aware.
My apologies.
This is for a specific project. That if you want to talk about something like that, that might be a city council kind of question.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So next up, let's have Best go. So
Thank you. I'm Rob Zako. I'm Executive Director of Better Eugene-Springfield Transportation, or BEST, and have been for 11 years now. And I want to talk a little bit about what we do, but I mainly want to answer questions you have and talk about opportunities of how residents of friendly area neighbors might get involved in transportation, how we might be able to assist with that. So we have been around for 11 years. I was going to do a slide presentation, but I like seeing people's faces and I don't have a lot to show anyways. Our mission is to build a successful community by bringing people together to promote transportation options, safe streets, and walkable neighborhoods. And we think that those are goals that everybody can get behind. Transportation options, safe streets, walkable neighborhoods. We tend to take on not neighborhood specific projects, but really big things. And I'm going to talk about a couple related things we're taking on right now that are away from the friendly area neighborhood. Main Street, actually, our work on safe streets started in 2015.
What is our opinions on niggers publicly like masturbate? Can't stop me, nigger.
why are you doing this? Okay, I'm removing you.
Don't remove me! No! Don't do it!
We can mute him, and I think the host can boot him out. We're
I'm
getting
sorry about
bombed
that,
just like city
folks.
council did. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So I want to talk. Our work on safe streets actually started in Springfield back in 2015. A pickup truck driver just lost attention. It all happens to all of us. Ran a red light, hit a mother and her 3 kids. The mother survived, the 3 kids did not. And this was a terrible tragedy. It rallied the whole community. It spurred BEST to take on safety to try to make sure that our streets everywhere are safe for everyone and that we don't see tragedies like this again. But we're more of a Eugene organization, and the city of Springfield has been planning and planning and planning. And a year ago, they canceled their plans to do anything on Main Street for safety. So let me just, that's one thing. Another street that's far from the friendly area neighborhood is River Road. And I don't know if you've got opinions on that. All I'll say is that the city of Eugene and Lane Transit District have been doing their moving ahead project on that for about 8 years. And they've recently put that on pause. My point is that we have 2 major transportation corridors where there are issues, people want to talk about it. Our governments have done a bunch of work at taxpayer expense, and at the end of a long time have not been able to do anything. And I mention this because BEST is not a government agency. We're privately funded. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. And what we do is we advise, we push, we support, we pull, we cajole, we recommend. We try to help local governments serve all of us better. And sometimes we use different techniques for that. So we're actually working on those 2 streets right now. And in lieu of governments doing anything, we're going back and saying, let's back up a few steps. Before we start talking about solutions for those 2 streets, let's see what the problems are. And so we've got some polls in what we're calling the Better Streets for People and Businesses. We're asking people on Main Street, we're asking people on the road. We also did this on Franklin Boulevard and just said, this is your street. Don't talk about sort of roundabouts or medians or whatever. Tell us today, is this a good street? Does it work for you? Does it not work for you? And gather that information. And what we believe is that if the people feel like things are fine, then that's great. Don't change it. But if a lot of people say that something needs to be changed, then we've got some public support to do something. And I think that the governments in both those cases have done enough to first check in with the public about whether there's an issue there that they need to resolve or not. So I share those stories just because, again, BEST is a non-government organization. We step in at times when governments are not entirely on their own able to serve us, and we try to complement them. We don't do the work of government for them. We don't build things ourselves, but we try to help identify what problems are, help bring people together, and we help to promote transportation options in safe neighborhoods. That's how we work. I want to share another thing that is much closer to the friendly area neighborhood that might be something you want to be engaged in. It's actually not our project. The University of Oregon has a student club called Live Move, and each year they take on a project or two. And last year they took on a project called Eugene Neighborhood Greenways 2.0. And if you know Alder Street, Alder Street is, I live on Alder Street. Alder Street is this wonderful side street, neighborhood street that's a block away from Hilliard, and it's where the bicyclists all go. It's painted with bicyclists can be on. It's a quiet street. There's not a lot of traffic. The end blocks, at 24th or whatever, it discourages motor vehicle traffic from going through there. And what the students at the University of Oregon are saying is, we have sort of two ways to promote bicycling citywide. One way is to take the busy streets, such as Hilliard, such as Franklin, such as High Street, such as 13th Avenue, and to build bicycle infrastructure on that so that people can bicycle where people also drive cars. I'm not going to argue for or against that. What I will say is that it costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time to make that happen. And not everybody wants to bicycle where there are lots of cars. So what the students at the University of Oregon are saying is, what if we went across the entire community and took a bunch of neighborhood streets and designated this as greenways and just did some restriping, put in some planters, some really close, cost-effective improvements to encourage people to bicycle along those. So it's now the start of a new academic year at the University of Oregon, and BEST is talking about partnering with Live Move to advance this idea and see how it might play out across the community. It might be that maybe Friendly Area Neighborhood might want to work with BEST. They might want to work with the students and kind of do some mapping of saying, if this were to become a thing, where in the Friendly Area Neighborhood would you want to have neighborhood greenways? They're not the major streets, but side streets. I don't know. So that's an option for possible collaboration or work that you could do. The last thing I'll say, and Todd, I'm going to lean on you here. Friendly Area Neighbors, unlike most neighborhood organizations, has had a fairly active transportation team. Thank you, Todd, for all the good work you and others are doing. And you're focused on what's happening in your neighborhood as it should be. What I would offer is that BEST and the people we work with have some political expertise and some technical expertise. We tend not to work at the neighborhood level, but at the broader level. But we have a group called the Cycle of Change, and it's kind of our clearinghouse or our space for anybody of all stripes who want to work on transportation issues to come together and to leverage each other's abilities. We meet monthly. There's some people who are working on very specific projects, and we're helping with them that. Others want to join and do some larger things. And so I'm just going to put it out there. And I know, Todd, that you're kind of looking for some new direction or certainly new leadership with the transportation team. We could explore if there's some collaboration opportunities there, if there's interest. And I'm going to stop there, and you know a lot more about your neighborhood and what your concerns are, and happy to answer questions or hear ideas. So let me stop there. Thank you. I can moderate, or I don't know if JJ, you want to moderate, but S. Gill, I'm not sure your name. I apologize.
I'm concerned, I'm interested that no one has brought up buses. We are so lucky in this neighborhood. We have two really good buses, the 42 and the 36. It is amazing that we have this good bus transportation. I noticed that when you were talking about the issue on 22nd, that is 4 blocks from a really good bus line. And we need to really, I don't quite understand why buses have just fallen out of the discourse. Is it because we think that we're too good to ride buses? I'm not too good to ride a bus. I know that a lot of us aren't too good to ride a bus, but I'm really concerned about the 78 bus. It was a wonderful bus line that a lot of people rode. You cannot get parking at the University of Oregon. It went directly from our neighborhood up 18th and then to a couple other places, but ended up at the University of Oregon. Why has that bus line been discontinued? Do we know why it has been discontinued? Rob, do you know why it has been discontinued?
I don't know in detail, but let me give you a little background. The transit industry across America has been turned upside down since during the pandemic, but even before then. The two trends that have been affecting transit are one, increasing technology and other ways of getting around that have cannibalized transit. And the pandemic first had people staying at home, and now people are telecommuting, and there's different travel patterns. Actually, there's a third trend, and this is probably the answer to your question, is that LTD has lots of money right now. They literally can't hire enough bus drivers to operate buses.
Well, I understand that, but we have not talked about why the 78 has been the one that has been canceled, because it was one that a lot of people rode, and it was one that really helped our neighborhood. And I'm just curious, and maybe you don't have the answer to that.
I don't have a specific answer, and maybe I see Todd's hand up. If you know in more detail, I can give sort of a general answer that might not be as satisfying. Do you know about the number 78?
Yeah, I'm not going to have a satisfying answer either, but just point of information. You know, we've had LTD do presentations in the past to FAN. The FAN transportation team and board were very instrumental years ago in extending the service of the 33 that goes through the neighborhood to actually connect us to our major shopping district, Woodfield Station. And then it wasn't too long after that the 33 was on the chopping block so that they could funnel their budget and focus towards more MX lines, which is great on a community scale, but it definitely left, there's a lot of heated debate and a lot of input about that, about loss of the local service. So we're kind of at the, unfortunately, at the black and right, we're not the whim, but we're a little less effective at doing stuff with LTD locally. LTD's board of directors are not locally elected; they're appointed by the governor. That's one of the issues, and then there's main priorities and not so much local priorities when it comes to their decision making. Broad community-wide transit, where unfortunately sometimes our neighborhoods get lost in the process. But I will say that the busing, the retention of the 33 line, particularly the one that actually goes through the neighborhood, has been an often topic. Access to the bus stops, good sidewalk access to those bus stops, the connectivity. How long does it take an able-bodied person to get to the bus versus somebody who needs some disability services or doesn't have the same mobility? Those are types of things that we're trying to address with the walkability and the pedestrian infrastructure slowly. But as I said, in terms of the actual busing system, that is several layers of hierarchy and bureaucracy removed from us. We try to influence it. I know BEST was originally formed, I think, Rob, around LTD issues and really emerged and grew from there. So I just wanted to throw that out there, saying you're not alone, but I don't have an answer.
I have another thing to say, but please go ahead is it Tia? And you're muted.
Thank you, Rob. I also missed the 33. I rode that to the U of O when I was teaching when I first came back to Eugene, grading papers on the way. It was very helpful instead of bicycling or trying to park over there. I'm over near Chambers, but I'm too far to walk to a bus stop now, and I really miss it. So could I get your first name, Miss Gills, for our records?
Sandy.
Sandy, thank you so much. But we heard the CEO of LTD give a presentation at the at a Eugene Neighborhood Inc. meeting a couple nights ago, and he mentioned the public safety factor, not only for passengers but drivers, as being a real concern, and that's why I moved back to Eugene. Was my mom was busing to teach at LCC downtown, that had all sorts of public safety issues trying to do that, just to get down to the main building, which was right on Willamette Street then. And so I came back to make sure she could get there safely. And it's been a real issue, not just for passengers, but drivers at all, in all public transit. I have a niece that's a TriMet bus driver in Portland, and it's really scary what happens to drivers. So that's one of the reasons they're not getting drivers as much. But yeah, the route cutting is definitely economics, I'm sure. And Southeast Neighbors has been very instrumental in trying to fight all of that. And we can thank them as well as Todd and our own team. And Rob, thank you.
So Sandy, this is maybe not be satisfying. Let me just say that transit is incredibly important for our community. You know, for people who can't drive or choose not to drive for whatever reasons, it's the primary way to get around. We need much, much better transit service. I
think we have wonderful transit service.
But it can be
a block from my house. I can catch great buses. I do think that we need to think about the 78 and how people get to the university, and just there
Absolutely.
are a lot of things that we need to think about. And I'm sorry, but driving is dangerous too. And I'm not going to say, you know, I just want people to think more about how lucky we are to have as much good public transportation as we have, and to think about encouraging it. And I do hope that the 78, if I don't know how, where do I go to talk to somebody? You know, Rob, I have emailed with you. Where do I go to talk to somebody about improving our public transportation? That's I don't need to say anymore.
The good news, I mean, the transit industry across the country and LTD particularly have gone through a lot of turbulence and had a lot of challenges they've been facing. Their board has not always been the most responsive. They have a really good board of directors right now. We have an amazing new general manager, Jameson Otten, that I guess spoke recently to Eugene Neighbors Inc. They are quite deliberately trying to reinvent themselves of how can they be more responsive to the community? How can they understand the needs? How can they serve all of us better? Best has a lot of confidence in the new leadership there. And for the time being, we're not second guessing them. We're waiting and saying, so what do they do? How can we help them? How can we encourage them? How can we get the word out? But changes, improvements are not going to happen overnight. The new general manager has just been on board for a year. The board of directors is very new and green. They're quite literally trying to reinvent themselves and serve the community better. We applaud that, but it's going to take a little while before we see those changes. And part of that will be evaluating where are routes needed, where could they do better, where they need more service. You know, can they get some additional funding to provide more service? Can they hire more bus drivers? All of that's on the table and being discussed. And they're looking to, not immediately, but I think over the next 6 months to 12 months, engage with the community. I hope they come back to FAN and have a conversation with you about the particular needs in your area.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you, Sandy. Go ahead, Pam.
I don't know where we are time-wise, but I and this may not be something that you deal with, but sometimes I don't ride my bike. I have an electric bike too, but I don't ride it sometimes because I'm just afraid it's going to get stolen. And if I'm not going to be able to stay with it and have to leave it somewhere, to do some shopping or something and come back. You know, I've just had too many friends who got stolen. I'm just wondering, is there anybody working on like some kind of new technology or something to keep bikes from getting stolen or to really cut back on it?
I actually have a very good answer to that question. As a person who recently had to deal with this problem. So you can actually get insurance through State Farm or other insurers for your bike or your e-bike. It costs about $10 a month for your regular, but for $1,000 bike, and about $20 a month for an $2,000 e-bike. And it's not like a homeowner's insurance or renter's insurance where they have a deductible. They will replace your entire bike.
But still, when when you're counting on your bike being there to get home and it's not there, and then, I mean, I've just wondered if there's any miraculous new technology that somebody.
I don't know if it's miraculous. I'm a long time bicyclist. I have my racing bike that I toured through Europe on still with me. And I don't like to use it in town because I don't want to get stolen. And so going around town, I actually use the bike share, even though I own my own bike, because it's not my bike if I use a bike share. And there's a hub not far from where I live, and I go downtown and I can ride it one way and I come back and there's another bike. That's not a solution for everyone. At least for me, that's how I've addressed the bike theft issue.
That's a good idea. Thanks.
I heard time for one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you think of the e-scooters?
Personally, I would never use one. I would rather ride a bicycle or have an electric bicycle than e-scooter. I think they're kind of silly. But from a policy, they're all over the place. They're on sidewalks. You know, I try to walk home, whatever, they're in the way. But every single e-scooter is another car that's on the road, and the cars on the roads drive me nuts too. I think that the city of Eugene is and needs to talk to the vendor. It's an out-of-town private vendor, super pedestrian, to make sure that people use them, park them in the right place. And I think there needs to be public education that people are more responsible with them. There's public education. People need more responsible driving cars. People are going to get killed someday from cars, but you can only teach people so much. So I'm not going to use them, but I think it's another option that's working for a lot of people and getting cars off the road. And I think if we can make it a better member of the community that doesn't have negative impacts, I think it's great whether any of us use them or not.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to the election section. Before we get into that, I would like to thank the outgoing board members. Thank you for being on this board for so long. Thank you for all the things that you've done, all the picnics that you've done, all the murals you've painted. You guys have been absolutely wonderful. I mean, especially Nancy, Pam, and Thea. You will be sorely missed, and the things that you have accomplished will be visibly seen in this community for a long time to come. So, Deb, did you want to go?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in on that too. Pam, Thea, and Nancy, you guys have just done so much incredible good work. Pam, you have served on the board through thick and thin times, and I admire your sticking with it and your ever optimistic attitude and the sanity that you've brought to the board through the ups and downs. And I appreciate all the many contributions you've made to our different publications. And Thea, you stepped onto the board several years ago as the Ready Friendly committee liaison. And in your usual way with your volunteer stuff, you just jumped right into the deep end and became a secretary and started sitting in on other related meetings and just proceeded to learn everything there is to know about neighborhoods and what's going on. And Nancy, the neighborhood is a kinder, more accepting and beautiful place because of all your work and the yard signs and murals that are around town that you spearheaded. They're going to grace the neighborhood for a long time to come. And I still remember hearing a city employee, I overheard them referring to you as the queen of follow through for all of your work on the murals. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Deb.
I should say, Deb, and thank you for being there. Even though you're not on the board now, you're still kind of a board member because you edit all the newspapers. So that's, you know, just an ongoing contribution that's much, much essential, not just appreciated. Thank you.
He does a lot more too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Carlos and Bernie are longtime staunch members and who've also done a lot. And JJ stepping in during a very difficult year for him to take on the co-chair and run this meeting. It's very appreciated. All right. Okay, let's get on with it.
Okay, so before we start the election, we currently do have a slate of individuals. However, I would like to open up the opportunity to anyone who would like to run on the board now. If you want to do that, please state so. You can state so in chat, or you can say something right now. I'll give people a minute or so if anyone wants to essentially say they want to run.
JJ, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You have Justin Gonzalez, Dave Prine, and Lisa Plaxco on the slate.
I have him on the slate. Yes.
Okay.
The slate currently includes Angela Petty, Carlos Barrera, Bernie Corrigan, Justin Gonzalez, Lisa Plaxco, and David Prine.
Are they here?
Several of them are currently running in absentia, and for reasons that I believe were stated in the previous meeting, some of which were very personal. So I don't want to go into too much detail on that.
Lisa and Dave are out of town for memorial for his father.
That.
Oh, I couldn't. Debbie,
Angela's here. If she'd like to introduce herself.
Oh, you're there.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela, and I've lived in Friendly since about 2016. And I'm passionate about connecting with the people and nature around me. And I'm looking forward to being on the board.
Great. So who was that? I mean, I'm sorry, Deb, your hand is up. Is that up again, or is it just left over from before? Oh,
that's left over.
Okay, so it's Carlos, Bernie, Angela, Justin, and who's the fifth one? Wasn't there another
Lisa
one?
and Dave.
Oh,
Lisa and Dave were at the meeting last week.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
currently
yeah.
Memorial.
Right, got it. And Justin, did we meet? Is Justin here? No, he's not.
No, Justin's not here.
Okay.
He probably did not get the proper notification for how to zoom in, or else he had something else going on.
Bernie, would you like to take a minute to say how long you've been on the board and what you do?
I'm sorry, I'm so old and senile, I don't remember how long I've been on the board. I've been on the board since 2000. And Carlos came on shortly after me. Right now, I'm currently acting as treasurer. That's a local joke, since every time we get a different treasurer, they quit. And so I wind up being treasurer again. I was co-chair for 7 years with Carlos a ways back. And I just try to keep it running.
Thankfully. Carlos?
Was it 7 years? I thought it was 10 years. But anyway, yeah, I joined. I got involved in neighborhood stuff not long after moving here in 2000, and just hung around. Lots of issues have come and gone, and at the moment, it doesn't seem there are any hot button issues. I still remember when we had 15 members and people on the waiting list. I guess we had some more hot button issues at that time. We'll see. I've enjoyed being on the fan board. It's a way to help influence what happens in the city People find out, particularly when Bernie and I were in the co-chairs, they find out, people on the city council and other places find out who we are, and they have a tendency to listen, especially if we make a lot of noise. So I look forward to getting to know these new members who are coming in and working together and making some more positive changes in our neighborhood.
I'd like to try a nomination without asking her first. Is that allowed?
Yes.
Of course.
I nominate Susan Palmer to serve on the board. If she's not listening, then she doesn't get to decline.
Fortunately, I am listening. Thea, that's very, very kind. I guess I should like put my picture up there.
It was all over the weekly, wasn't it, on the front page or something?
That's a long time ago now. Thank you very much. I'm involved in the Ready Friendly group, help out with some of the ham radio stuff. And I feel like that's about as the extent of my ability to be responsive, but I'm really delighted that this group exists and works hard, and my hat's off to all of you, because I know it's not easy and it takes time.
Thank you, and thank you for being with Ready Friendly. But perhaps you'll have more time for the board another time.
Thanks for thinking of me.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a slate of people who are running, and I think that's it. Sounds like. If anyone else says something, please do now. But other than that, I think that we should do the vote for the individuals who are currently on the slate, which is again Angela, Carlos, Bernie, and running in absentia, Lisa Plaxco, Dave Prine, and Justin Gonzalez. So Bernie can speak positively to 3 of those individuals. I've met 2 of them, and of the 3 who are in absentia. As far as I can tell, they seem like they'd be appropriate board members. We have no particular reason to exclude them. So I think that we should do the vote. How this works is either raise your hand physically or put a hand sign up using the reactions feature. That was a clap, sorry.
Where the hell is the reaction feed? Oh.
Okay, well, yeah, you can just put on some kind of a reaction, that'll count as a vote. So, of course, both Nancy and Herb get to vote. And if there's anyone else with you, go ahead and mention that there are 2 people. Only raise your hand if you were either a member of, if you were in Friendly, or if you are have some kind of a vested interest in Friendly, i.e. you're a business owner, you work in a volunteer organization here, something to that effect. Let's do this. Okay.
So all in favor of this slate, raise your hand, or in some form. Okay.
Bernie, you cannot vote for Bernie and Carlos cannot vote.
You can't.
What? Of course
you can't vote for yourself. It's again. I looked at the rules. You're not allowed to.
Oh, how about that?
Uh-oh.
Well, maybe you can vote for everybody else.
However, it looks like we have 10 people.
Okay.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It looks like we have 16 votes in favor. Is that correct? Am I counting right?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any votes against?
Oops.
Oops.
Hang on. Wait.
No, I don't think there's any.
We got to lower our hands. Give us time.
Say so if you are against.
Yeah. Looks like Angela is against.
Well, Angela doesn't get to vote because she's running.
Oh.
Anyway, So the ayes have it. The board is renewed with the 6 members mentioned: Bernie Corrigan, Carlos Barrera, Angela Petty, Dave Prine, Lisa Plaxco, and Justin Gonzalez.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
And I know I don't get to say, but I personally nominate Angela as one of the co-chairs.
Well, just for until November, as far as somebody bringing the November meeting to order, you might want to have a temporary chair. Maybe Bernie or Carlos could do it because they've been around. But
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Bernie or Carlos, would either of you be interested in being the temporary chair for November? And do you know how to set up the Zoom meeting?
No.
No, I don't know how to set up a Zoom.
Yeah,
Okay.
Angela have to do it.
I'll volunteer because I want to learn how to set up Zoom meetings.
I'd be happy to talk to someone about it before I go. Thea also knows how to do so as well. So you can always ask one of us about it. You basically just have to log in the friendly area Zoom account, and I'll just give you the login name and password, and that should be sufficient.
Okay, I have a question for Thea. You're staying with Ready Friendly, correct?
I was just going to say that. I don't know if I'll still have access to the Zoom account, but I'd be happy to try to help. I'm not a good teacher though, but.
Okay. All right.
I'll send you the login information for the Zoom account. You just need to log out of yours and log into that one, and then let people in the meeting. That's it.
So that'll be November 21st. That's the
Yeah, and the new board can change your dates too. If you all get together and reschedule yourselves.
And the times. And also we are on the city's Zoom account, and they are changing to Google Meets at some point. We don't know when. So setting up a Zoom will no longer be needed at some point. And it's supposed to be easier to schedule it with Google Meets.
It's overwhelmingly easier. I use both of them. Google Meets is practically automated. Zoom is a pain.
Okay.
So
great.
it'll be very simple and straightforward. All you do is join with your browser. You don't need to have a special client or anything.
Thank you so much to everybody who came tonight. I really appreciate you staying through the elections. So we really needed you hot, warm bodies here.
Yep.
And I'm around for any help with transition, of course. We all are.
And
yeah.
I should just say, I'm still planning to do equity action. I'm just not going to be on the board.
Yeah.
So
that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll change the
By
minutes.
the way, I will need to transfer accounts to someone. So just letting you know, pick someone at the next meeting. I'll transfer accounts to that person. So for like the friendly area one and such.
When are you moving, JJ? I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm moving on November 15th.
Oh, coming right up. So we got to.
Quick.
So you can decide who to change it to after that. You can still contact me via email very easily or my phone. I'm happy to answer calls and such.
JJ, can you shoot me your phone number?
Sure thing.
That's probably in the board roster too. If you're able to find that.
I'll send an email with my phone number as well as the Zoom log information to you, Carlos, and Angela.
Yeah.
Okay.
Todd, it was great to see you again. I'm glad to hear you're sticking with it until there'll never be a replacement for you. So we look forward to seeing you in the future. Nobody can replace you is what I meant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for transportation team trying to hold it together, recruit a new chair, maybe some people to take over chair. We want to keep the team going. I'll certainly be involved, but I just I can't keep up the level of effort that I have been on it. So
yeah,
I really want to thank you, Todd, by the way. You've done incredible work with the transportation team.
Yeah.
I know it's not the same as the board, but I want to make it clear that you do deserve your own round
Yeah,
of applause. You're great at this. I hope to end up working with you on something in the future when you have more time to do volunteer work. For sure. Who knows? Maybe I'll be a member of some national pedestrian organization or something.
Yeah, 10 years is quite an effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've accomplished a lot.
Really.
Thank you. Made a difference in this neighborhood.
Save some lives too, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably.
Definitely. It's probably someone who's alive just because of Todd's efforts. I would not be surprised with the speed bumps.